Hell Valley Sky Tree. It is a sentence you might have heard in the last decade. Its title may sound eerie in nature, however, its origin stems from a familiar game you've probably played in your childhood or early teens. With Super Mario Galaxy 2's release over 12 years ago, there's been one popular mystery that perplexed players for quite a long time, and still has developments even to this day. This mystery in question has multiple interpretations ranging from theories comparing it to real-life locations and folklore, and also connections to future 3D Mario titles. I'm no stranger to creepy or disturbing Easter eggs in video games. I've always wanted to cover them on this channel, and I feel like this may be a good starting point. I'm not sure. Today I'd like to refresh your memory, or maybe introduce you to a new discovery on an iconic Easter egg that still catches the eye of some players even to this day. What are the Hell Valley Sky Trees? Super Mario Galaxy 2 is a game that needs no introduction. It is a follow-up to one of the best games out of the Wii's library, and is one of the best Mario games in general. I still go back and forth to this day, debating whether or not I prefer the first or second game. It's just that good in my opinion. Regardless, our story takes place in Shiverburn Galaxy, the third galaxy in World 5. This level takes place inside a Grand Canyon at night, and the main themes revolve around fire and ice. Shiverburn's planets play around this fire and ice theming, forcing you to get comfortable switching between lava and ice physics to reach the end goal. It shares some similarities to Freeze Flame Galaxy from the first game, albeit less ambitious than its older brother. There are 3 stars in Shiverburn, with the main objective being Star 1, defeating Prince Picante, a relative of King Caliente from the first game. Now, one thing that may seem off about this galaxy to begin with is its skybox. For reference, a skybox is a series of textures made in such a way that allows the background to appear much larger and more detailed. Shiverburn's skybox is a unique one that hasn't appeared in the game up until this point, which keep in mind is 5 worlds deep. Other galaxies have reused skyboxes previously used in earlier levels, which establish a scale of beauty and atmosphere. Typically there's either a cloudy daytime skybox, or a colored starry space night skybox. However, Shiverburn's is distinctive compared to the rest. If you take the opportunity to look up at the skybox, you may see 3 looming ghostly figures far off in the distance. These creatures were definitely a bizarre sighting at first, and spawned multiple threads online discussing what the silhouettes could be. A curious data miner, Tacos, posted his findings to forum page GoNintendo, and turns out that the codename for Shiverburn's skybox in the files is labeled Beyond Hell Valley, and the accompanying textures for the skybox are Hell Valley Mist, Universe, Walls, and lastly, Tree. Hell Valley Sky Tree is the texture of the looming creatures on the cliffside. The texture itself only has 2 of these creatures, meaning it was used twice on the skybox. The texture on the right side is pushed slightly below the cliff, signifying there's actually 4 of these creatures, just 1 is out of sight. Going back to in-game, these figures are visible from any point in the level no matter where you're standing, but they never move and can never be interacted with since they're attached to the skybox. They also make another appearance in Grandmaster Galaxy, where they're more easily visible due to the visual heat filter from Shiverburn not being present. These 3 figures plagued first players upon release. The Hell Valley Skytrees aren't entirely all that creepy nor scary. There's much worse stuff in other games that are flat out terrifying, and these guys don't even interact with you. Whether something is creepy or not is absolutely subjective, and fear is really down to opinion. However, the fact that these textures even exist in a game series that's known for being cheery and lighthearted is just strange. Hell Valley is a little out of place for a Mario game, but I'm not gonna over-exaggerate this point. After the discovery of the trees were made, multiple creepypastas quickly spread around online depicting horror stories involving these creatures. Some players interpreted the sky trees as ghostly figures or even aliens, but using tools such as texture and model viewers and even skybox editors, were able to see that the sky trees are just simply silhouettes with lanky arms and hollowed eyes. Some theories back in 2010 were that Hell Valley could have been Shiverburn's initial name in earlier versions of Galaxy 2, or even the name of Shiverburn Galaxy in the Japanese version of the game. Although a translation was quickly made and the Japanese version is named Frozen Lava Galaxy. Some players thought the sky trees could be the same ghostly figures in the skybox shown in Haunty Halls and Boom Moon Galaxy, as they do share some similarities. However, the in-game texture for the skybox is labeled Phantom Ghost, but it's easy to see where the comparisons came from. These remarks and theories were the only notes made on the sky trees back in 2010, and it remained that way for quite a while. That is, until someone curiously stumbled upon another potential sighting years later in Super Mario 3D Land, released for the Nintendo 3DS in 2011. In World 4-4 and 8-4, you find yourself traversing through a ghost house. At the end of the levels, if you stand near the stone wall behind the goal pole and face the fence for a couple of seconds, a ghostly figure will slowly emerge from the background. Once enough time passes, the figure will open its mouth, flash, and quickly fade back into the background. So, that makes 2 of these spooky sightings. This newly discovered figure definitely shares some physical similarities to the sky trees, which only fueled the theory train further. At this point, it was clear that players online thought that these 2 sightings were connected in such a way, and theorizing only grew desperate. Why would Nintendo put 2 ghostly figures in 2 consecutive 3D Mario releases? Just for a joke? Just to get players to start discussions online? There had to be something more to these appearances. And there was. Only recently it was discovered that this ghostly figure appears at the beginning of every single ghost house stage in the game, despite the player base coining the figure as the level 4-4 ghost. But not only that, 3D Land also has another sighting. In World 1-3, if you use the binoculars at the beginning of the level and then wait long enough, a white UFO will appear in the sky, only to move around for a minute and then fly straight back up out of sight. Now, we collectively have 4 strange creatures staring down at us from a galactic cliffside, a spectral figure in the woods outside a ghost house, and finally a literal alien spacecraft in broad daylight. Needless to say, 2011 to 2012 was certainly a time for players laying in the intersection between Mario games and creepy Easter eggs. The sky trees were absolutely added to Galaxy 2 just to see how players would react. And considering they quickly gained traction online, I'd like to imagine that the same dev, or group of developers, continued the same train of thought regarding these hidden surprises, and added 2 more in 3D Land to see how fast fans would find them. For reference, the dev team responsible for the past couple 3D Mario games is Nintendo Production Group 8, or Nintendo EPD 8. They're responsible for mainline 3D Mario games and more as of 2005, only becoming a unified group in 2017, Mario Odyssey's release. So somebody on that team absolutely had a laugh putting these hidden messages in the games. Super Mario 3D World, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, Super Mario Odyssey, Mario Maker 2, 3D All-Stars, and Bowser's Fury were all produced by this team as the years followed. In all of these titles to this day, there were no signs of any Hell Valley sky trees, no ghastly figures, nothing. Not even in any ghost worlds, haunted house themes, or the likes had them present. Outside of one. Was it 3D World? Mario Odyssey? Any of the remastered ports and All-Stars? No. It was Captain Toad. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker has two final spooky developments, albeit not as intriguing as the past ones I've covered. First, we'll head to Chapter 1-16, Bizarre Doors of Boo Mansion. This encounter isn't super special, but it's still a little mysterious. If you wait for a short time near the back end of the mansion, a set of handprints will litter the wall where you stand. Now, whatever scattered these prints are definitely human, as they don't resemble any form of species in the Mario universe outside of human handprints. For only being present in one Ghost Mansion level, it's not all that interesting, just a little eerie as to why it's even there in the first place. The other is located in Chapter 3-17, Freight Train Flight. This stage is one of my personal favorites, as you maneuver through a constantly moving train, having to operate levers that control multiple parts of the train. For this setting, you make your way towards the front of the train, or the end of the level, and you just wait. After waiting for a while, a giant spirit appears, cackling beneath the infinite railroads. This ghostly being is absolutely the largest one of the bunch, staring at the camera, laughing maniacally. Physically, it resembles a sort of combination between the Sky Trees and the 4-4 Ghost, due to its composure of a traditional ghost and its facial features. Obviously, when these were discovered, it followed the same path of discussion online as the developers intended, making their plan successful once more. One slightly interesting detail about these two Easter eggs from Captain Toad is that in the 3DS and Switch port of the game, released both in 2018, these ghosts were removed. Content creators who covered this topic soon realized that during their search, they weren't able to activate the Easter eggs after waiting around for long periods of time, which only led them to conclude that they were removed from the game for some reason. Obviously, the reason is unknown, and searching through the game's textures, there are no leads whatsoever. Perhaps one of the higher-ups said enough was enough and removed them for good, considering every release up until this day hasn't had an Easter egg as such, consequently putting this Easter egg saga to a close. As I previously mentioned, the Sky Trees and the 4-4 Ghost had multiple theories surrounding their identities back when they were first discovered. As times online were different, and discovering an Easter egg like this was definitely a big deal to some during that era of the internet. Based on physical appearances alone, people speculated that they could be ghosts or cursed spirits, gray aliens, or even Slender Man, if that says anything about the era we're discussing. The 1-3 UFO definitely added to the theory of an alien presence in the Mario world. However, I think that the community jumped to a better conclusion pretty quickly. Unfortunately, both of the Captain Toad Easter eggs never had much speculation on them, but I still wanted to cover them here. I feel like the community at that point were just on board with whatever new creepy Easter egg was added. One funnier theory is that the 4-4 Ghost and the Omega Ghost from Captain Toad shares a striking resemblance to the famous art piece The Scream, painted by Edvard Munch in 1893. I'll give some credit for this one, as they both absolutely mirror the painting's figure, especially the 4-4 Ghost when it fades away. But the most popular theory on the Sky Trees and the 4-4 Ghost by far is that they're actually Kodama. For those unaware of what Kodama are, they're spirits in Japanese folklore that inhabit trees. A Kodama's outer appearance is very much like an ordinary tree, and they're depicted in differing shapes and sizes. The Kodama are considered to roam mountains and forests, protecting nature in a way. If one attempts to cut a tree down, one would become cursed by the Kodama, and it is thus considered to have some kind of mysterious supernatural power. They're symbolized to be a guardian, or an observer, if you will, sometimes even called the mountain gods. So, by this, it's very obvious that this interpretation almost precisely lines up with what the Sky Trees are, and it's my personal favorite theory. Not only do the arguments on physical appearances line up with differing sizes, but they also inhabit trees and roam mountains, the exact location in which they're present, and the theme of their internal naming scheme. The connections to the Kodama were brought up as early as 2012 or 2013 from my own research, so the conclusion was drawn relatively quickly after 3D Land's discoveries. With the Kodama covered, I'd finally like to talk about the name that started it all, Hell Valley Skytree. We've practically gathered the Skytree aspect of the name, but what about the Hell Valley portion? Lava is the defining trait of what's depicted of Hell, but ice is still present in the galaxy, so what gives? I had mentioned before that Hell Valley could have been the original name for Shiverburn in earlier builds of Galaxy 2. However, I don't think that the name would have sat well with Nintendo, especially during the DS Wii era where they were trying to buckle down on ESRB ratings. Luckily, some connections were made to an in-real-life location that surprisingly shares the same name. I can't pinpoint an exact time frame this connection was made, so if someone out there knows, then please let me know in the comments. Either way, there exists a location called Jigokudani, or Hell Valley, in Noboribetsu, a city in Hokkaido, Japan. Hell Valley, Japan is an active volcanic geothermal area that also hosts multiple natural hot springs in the area. The hot springs are surrounded by bleached sulfuric rocks and even sometimes snow. The sulfurous ponds have a surface temperature of 50 degrees Celsius, making it a must-visit tourist attraction for travelers who want to kick back, relax, and take in the beauty of the location when visiting Japan. It is well believed that Hell Valley is entirely based upon this location in Japan. The mountainous locale, hot springs, and bleach-white rocks that definitely match the theming of Shiverburn, and even further, with snow sometimes falling near the ponds, only strengthening that connection. Hell Valley, a mountainous volcanic resort surrounded in snow, and the sky trees, taking the form of the Kodama, who roam and oversee the mountains protecting nature. This is the consensus from the community behind the meaning of the name Hell Valley Skytree, as multiple wikias have specified these two Japanese connections as the main references for the internal name and the Easter eggs that accompany it. It's an intriguing, probable story of a couple of Japanese developers who wanted to reference their region and folklore through this galaxy. However, I feel that the in-joke got a little too carried away, and they took a more ominous path with future installments once fans interpreted their reference as eerie. Unfortunately for those following their trail, it was quickly put to rest in games post-Treasure Tracker on the Wii U, as no appearances have been spotted in any titles to this day. But who knows? Maybe one day these spirits will be revisited in a re-release of Galaxy 2, or even future titles down the road, and we'll get to continue speculating the mysteries behind the Hell Valley Skytrees. Online discussions on these beings definitely won't be forgotten, nor will the countless secrets placed in games that follow. The story behind the Skytrees will forever be a notable time for discovering creepy Easter eggs in games. And with that, thank you for watching. I hope I rekindled the flame of this mystery for those who knew about it, or at least gave some closure to this long-lasting theory. It's an iconic one that'll be remembered for a while. Either way, this is Xord64, signing off.